Hi guys, today we're going to be making a pasta rocket. And in order to do that, we need a couple of supplies. We need a small mason jar with a lid. We need fast-acting yeast. We need hydrogen peroxide. And of course, pasta. I have ziti here today, but you could use any tubular pasta, ziti or penne, as long as it has a hole for a gas to escape. Okay. And of course, you need your lighter. Okay. So in order to run this experiment, the first thing you want to do is you want to take your mason jar lid and you want to make a hole in the lid that you can go ahead and poke your pasta in to hold it upright. Okay. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take my hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to pour it into my mason jar, about a quarter of a way full or so, just enough to make sure that you have enough in your jar to run the reaction. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my yeast here, and I'm going to put it in my mason jar. See, I give it a little shake, a little swirl, and you can see there's already bubbles forming, and so that's already the reaction that's occurring. Okay, you can see that by the presence of bubbles. And then I'm going to take my lid, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on top of my mason jar. I'm going to press really firm. I want a nice solid seal there. I'm going to give my yeast and peroxide a little swirl to make a little bit more of a reaction happen. Okay, and you can see there it goes, it's bubbling nice and good. Okay, and again, we want a nice firm seal on our jar because we don't want we don't want the lid popping off. Okay, all right. So now that I've got this lovely seal going on, and my peroxide and yeast are reacting, I'm going to go ahead and try and light my noodle. All right, and there we go. I've got a pasta rocket happening. And so there are three main types of rocket that occur. Okay, we have a solid fuel rocket, a liquid fuel rocket, and a hybrid fuel rocket. And our pasta rocket here is going to be a model of our hybrid rocket. And so in a hybrid rocket, it uses a solid combustible fuel source and a gas oxidizer. Our fuel source is going to be a substance that can burn in the presence of oxygen. In our case, our fuel source is the pasta noodle itself. The oxidizer is going to be the source of oxygen. And in our pasta rocket noodle here experiment, what our oxidizer is then is the hydrogen peroxide. That may be all we get out of that. Try it a little bit more. And so the hydrogen peroxide then is the source of our oxygen in our reaction. Okay, and so together, the pasta and the hydrogen peroxide make up what's called the propellant. Okay, and a propellant is the combustion of fuel and the oxidizer. Okay, it's the chemical mixture that's going to be burned to provide the propulsion in our rocket. Okay, I'm going to let the reaction run a little bit more, and then we'll try lighting it on fire again. And so the reaction that's occurring here, it is an exothermic reaction, because if you touch the jar while this reaction is occurring, it is very warm, and so heat is being released to the outside system. It's being released out to the atmosphere. Okay, it's also what's called a decomposition reaction, which means I'm taking one compound and I'm breaking it into at least two or more molecules or compounds. So in our case, we're taking hydrogen peroxide and we're decomposing it, or we're breaking it apart to make water and oxygen gas. Okay, and so the equation then, we have 2 moles of hydrogen peroxide react with the presence of yeast. Yeast is going to be what's called a catalyst, and it's going to react then to form 2 moles of water and 1 mole of oxygen gas. So peroxide is decomposed, it's broken apart, to make water and gas. Okay? And so what in the heck is a catalyst then, right? Okay, a catalyst, what it does is it works to speed up the reaction by providing a place where reactants can come together to react. And they do this by lowering the activation energy that's required for a reaction to occur. Okay? And activation energy then is going to be the amount of energy needed to allow the chemical reaction to occur. So it's going to be the energy that's needed to make or break a bond. Okay? The yeast acts like a catalyst because yeast cells contain something called catalase in them. Okay? Catalase in the yeast is going to lower the activation energy needed to break the oxygen bond in peroxide, which allows the decomposition reaction to occur very quickly. Okay, and so all organisms, they produce hydrogen peroxide as kind of like a byproduct of cell processes, but hydrogen peroxide could be very toxic for our cells. So they need a way to break it down very quickly. And again, they use the catalyst then in order to accomplish this. Okay, they want to decompose the hydrogen peroxide and so that you don't poison the cell. So in our reaction, then yeast is going to act as the catalyst because it's going to break that oxygen off of that extra oxygen off of hydrogen peroxide. Remember, hydrogen peroxide is 2 oxygens and 2 hydrogens bonded together. And so it just takes that extra oxygen that's one away from making it into water, breaks that off the hydrogen peroxide, and then we form water and oxygen gas. And it goes very, very quickly. So as our oxygen gas forms in our jar, it's going to escape through the hole in our pasta. And so what happens then? Well, first of all, let's talk about rockets. What does this have to do with rockets? Well, rockets, they're going to depend on a force called thrust to help them move through the air. Okay, and they get this thrust by burning fuel in a process called combustion. Combustion's, it's going to be a chemical process in which substances react rapidly with oxygen and they give off heat and light. Okay, and we know that as a layperson as fire or flame, right? As the oxygen escapes through the hole in our pasta, it's going to combine with the complex carbohydrates that make up the pasta. The carbohydrates are going to be in a ring-like structure within our pasta, and together they're going to act as that propellant to form carbon dioxide gas and water in the combustion reaction. And so as carbon dioxide is formed, okay, that carbon dioxide is going to be released up here in the atmosphere, okay, what happens is it's pushing out of our noodle. And if this was a rocket, say on the side or facing up into the air, it would be pushing out with enough force to move our rocket through the air. And that's why our pasta rocket is so cool. I'm going to try one more time to get this to light. And so keep your fingers crossed for me. We may have burned enough fuel. We don't have enough there. I think we're done. But it was a lot of fun while it lasted.